welcome to Sports Time with Chris. I'm your host, Chris, and today I have a lot of stuff I want to talk about. A lot of stuff. And surprisingly, only a little bit is about the 49ers, which is typically what my content is about. But this weekend is wildcard weekend. Obviously, the regular season just ended, and yeah, there is so much to get to. So I'm going to get to it as much as possible in this episode. It's going to be really jam-packed, and I'm going to try to condense it because I don't have a lot of time to record this week. So what I'm going to talk about in this episode, starting with the Niners, they're holding a press conference currently, I believe. I don't know how long that's supposed to last, but we have a little bit more information about their situation currently, and I'll be talking about that. Talking about some things that I would like to see the 49ers do. But I am going to have a full episode kind of highlighting what I think the Niners need to do going forward. That will probably be sometime after the Super Bowl that's honestly where I'm going to talk about the offseason the most, is during the offseason. Of course, if there is news, every week, well, I'll be covering the NFL playoffs, giving my score predictions and thoughts on things going forward. And if there is any 49ers news, then I'll talk about that a little bit. But until the Super Bowl, I'll be mostly talking about the playoffs and non-49ers related stuff because they're not in the playoffs. So as far as this episode goes, just a few items on the agenda. I'll be talking about the 49ers firing two of their coaches. Well, not firing one of them. He's still on the roster. I'll talk about that. Breaking down some of my initial free agents that I would like to see return to the 49ers. And then just some other news related to them. And then from there, I'm going to give a little bit of I'm going to look back at my playoff predictions from back whenever I did the episode with my dad and brother where we predicted the playoffs and Super Bowl and MVP and stuff. I'm going to be reacting to that a little bit. And then from there, I will be giving my predictions for the wildcard weekend. So stay tuned for that. Let's get right into the 49ers. So obviously, the 49ers lost their last game of the season to the Arizona Cardinals. They got absolutely slaughtered. And yeah, it epitomized the whole season. Just train wreck from beginning to end. So mercifully, the regular season for the Niners is officially over. And so I've been writing down notes kind of as things have happened throughout the week. Like I said earlier, this is being recorded at the same time as the 49ers press conference. So if there is any more news that kind of breaks, I'll be reacting to that. Oh, yeah, I need to make sure I add that here. So the first news that kind of broke this week was that Brian Schneider, the special teams coordinator, was fired. And this should have been done way earlier in the season, in my opinion. Special teams was awful. And yeah, I've been calling for Brian Schneider to be let go for, I don't even remember when my first tweet was. It was a long time ago, like week 4 or something like that. And, some people will say you should never ask for someone to be fired from their job, like that's their livelihood. And I agree with that. I don't think you should, root for someone to be fired, but these guys get paid millions of dollars. I think they're going to be just fine. He'll find a job somewhere else, whether it's NFL or college. They make millions of dollars. I don't feel bad about that at all. So then other news that came out, Brock Purdy, during his end-of-year media session, said that he wants to get his contract done early. He wants to do it drama-free. He wants to do it the right way. He wants to be a professional about it. Gave a very quarterback answer to those questions, and that's good. We're going to talk about, I think the 49ers should bring Brock Purdy back. That, to me, is a no-brainer, honestly. Just from an organizational standpoint, that makes sense. I would have liked to see him with a different head coach, but that's not going to happen. So there are a lot of people who are sort of nervous about Brock and his ability to stay healthy. And to me, that doesn't fall on Brock. We have seen this issue with the 49ers for a long time. How many times over Shanahan's tenure with the 49ers have there been catastrophic injuries to quarterbacks? There have been a few. Jimmy G, of course, Brock, Trey Lance, all three of those guys had season-ending injuries at some point. Now, Brock's, of course, happened in the NFC Championship game, so it's a little bit different, but still, it's happened. And to me, that is a product of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and all of them just not focusing on building the offensive line. That to me is where everything starts. It's the offensive line. And so, I'll talk about this later, but to me, the biggest need this season is definitely that is O-line in the draft, free agency, because just look at all the teams that are in the playoffs right now. Almost all of them have dominant or really good offensive lines. The Lions, of course, the Eagles, the Chiefs, Bills, they all have really, really solid offensive lines. Top of the league offensive lines. And that's somewhere where the 49ers just have been comfortable being mediocre at. And so that is where things start. And so, yeah, you should sign Brock. I think he is more than capable of leading this team in the future. I think Brock can win a Super Bowl. In the Chiefs Super Bowl game, he never left the field without the lead in the fourth quarter and overtime. Now, and then some of those plays, there was the one play where Chris Jones came in unblocked. That's on the offensive line. That's not on Brock. He was looking at his read, and of course, Brandon Ayuk was open. He laid his defender down on that play, but Brock didn't have time to even get through his progression. If he had maybe one more second, he might have been able to either get that ball a little bit better to Juwan or find Ayuk. So that's where I stand on that. Dre Greenlaw, I don't know. I have a feeling that he's not going to be on the team anymore. I think he is going to command a lot of money on the open market, and a team is going to offer him more money than the Niners can. You can't have two. They're already very top heavy, and D. Winters has shown some good things. I think the Niners are really good at drafting linebackers and finding linebackers in free agency, so they're not going to be quite at Dre Greenlaw's level, but unfortunately, he's going to be a guy that you have to let go unless he is willing to take some sort of hometown discount. I think that is just the way it's going to have to be. Another guy that appears to be on his way out is Charvarius Ward. He spoke at his locker during the last little open media session they had, and he said that it basically felt like a goodbye. And of course, he went through the worst thing anyone can go through during the season, losing his daughter. And he explained that whenever they would fly back home, they'd go back to California, he would, have PTSD and just not be in the right place mentally. And that it was really difficult for him to focus, and there were times that he did feel like quitting. And so I can fully understand why he wouldn't, not necessarily the Niners that he doesn't want to be with, but in California. I don't think I would want to I don't think I would want to be in that same home either. It's really hard. He said his girl, I'm assuming baby mama, wife, girlfriend, I'm not sure what the situation is there, but he said that she doesn't want to come back to California. So, and it's been hard for him to be alone. He has basically been living alone since he's been back with the team. So that's something to keep in mind for him. And it's unfortunate. I really like Charvarius Ward, both as a player and a person. This season, I don't think he is going to care too much about how his season went, compared to what he went through in real life. So yeah, I can see him being gone, unfortunately. Kyle Shanahan announced today, so there were rumors that Nick Sorensen had been fired as a defensive coordinator, and in some way that is true. Shanahan told him he would no longer be the defensive coordinator, but he's still with the Niners. He is a candidate for the open special teams coordinator position, which Nick Sorensen has done before, but either way, he's going to be on the coaching staff in some capacity. And so there have been some names tied to the defensive coordinator job. Robert Saleh was reportedly given an offer by the Niners. Jeff Ulbrich, the Jets coach, the Niners tried to interview him for a position last season. That didn't work out. And then Brandon Staley is also an internal candidate for the Niners. Obviously, he was brought in to do some sort of, he's the assistant head coach, and then he was brought in to do something on the defense. So not really surprising there. I don't think any of these guys are really the right move, honestly. To me, Shanahan is a little too obsessed with the scheme. Like, they need to run the specific wide nine defensive scheme that they've been running since he's been here. And to be quite honest, teams have started to figure it out and it hasn't been working as much, which is also the same. The same goes for his offense. But bringing in those guys, it's the same defense, besides maybe Staley. Staley's now familiar with the defense, having been with the team for a year. So maybe, I don't know what the right move is for the Niners. To me, you've got to get something fresh in there. Steve Spagnuolo, his defense is crazy. Brian Flores, his defenses, they're so creative in what they do. And what the Niners have been doing during Shanahan's time has not been creative at all. And the most creative it got was during the Steve Wilkes era with the Niners defense, and they still fired him. And so, I don't know. To me, whatever the Niners do, it's just taking a step backwards. There's no taking a step up, because this defense has had, 3 coordinators in the last 3 seasons, had 4 coordinators in the last 6. And so there really is no continuity with this defense. There's no building on what they've been doing, because each time, even though you're running the same scheme, each defensive coordinator is different, and they're not necessarily going to build on what team did the year before. It's basically just, it's like, you're writing a book and you have 4 different writers with different writing styles. It's just, you can tell the same story, but you're going to notice the differences in between all the different writers. You might have some that are more similar, but are going to be a couple that stand out as well, and not necessarily in a good way. So going along with what I just said about Kyle Shanahan and wanting to run his same scheme, in his press conference today, this is from Nick Wagner, Shanahan indicated he's more open to scheme changes in the defense in this hire than in the past, adding that if the scheme stays the same, there needs to be more flexibility within it. I'm not saying you have to change schemes, but you have to have the ability, the history, and the knowledge of how to change some stuff up when you're in some certain situations, and I think that we need to do that going forward. So that's where I never thought they should have hired Sorensen in the first place last season. I think it is cool that Shanahan tries to promote guys from within the organization and, lift coaches around him up, but it's obviously Nick Sorensen was not ready for that. And it goes back to what I said about how when you try to run the same scheme, it can become stagnant, especially when you don't have guys that know how to change things up and call different plays at different times situationally. And this year, the defensive backs had no idea how to handle bunch and stacked formations. It boggles my mind that these coaches didn't have the defensive backs prepared for that at all. It was constantly exposed. Constantly. I'm surprised teams didn't just come out and bunch and do that the whole game. Otherwise, I think you would have seen a lot more games get ugly. It's inexcusable. And to me, it just screams that, Shanahan knows that maybe the scheme isn't working as well. And he knows that teams have adjusted to it. And that's why he's more open to changing it up, which is good. I think it's a step in the right direction for Shanahan, but to me, it just feels like it's a few seasons too late. And maybe that should have started with Steve Wilkes. I should have given him another season to build on what he did the year before. And now it's going to be a new defensive coordinator, even if it's an old guy, like Robert Saleh. If they bring him back, yeah, it's the same scheme and some of the same players are there, but a lot of the defensive guys are new. They weren't there with Saleh. And so it's going to be just bringing a new guy in instead of building on what they did last year. To me, that's just, you're going to stay stagnant there. So we'll see how things go with that moving forward. And then this to me is such a good step in the right direction, and that is that Shanahan announced that Klay Kubiak would be the team's new offensive coordinator. He was given the opportunity to call the game against the Cardinals, and I think that's really good. I think if he's a true offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan will hand him the reins, give up a little bit more of his control, and be able to focus on the team a little bit more, which he did not do a great job of last year. There was just so much stuff going on that wasn't really related to football. I mean, there was a whole situation between Deebo and Pepper and Moody. There was Devondre Campbell. Shanahan needs to, if he wants to be the head coach, he needs to act like a head coach. And the last few years, it's like he's just an offensive coordinator. He looks down at his play sheet and his tablet the whole game. And even when guys have catastrophic injuries, he's still standing there looking at his play sheet. And you see head coaches all the time when they have an injured player, they'll go out there and check on them and make sure that they're good. And if they're not good, giving them words of advice. And Shanahan just doesn't do that. And to me, it's like, it always seems like Shanahan views his players as plug and play. Like, oh, you lose a guy, we're going to plug someone else in. They're basically robots that are all replaceable. And that's one of the reasons why I'm just over Shanahan. And it's not even like, oh, you're over Shanahan because he doesn't check on his players. No, it's just, to me, it's like he's not really building a team. It's like he's building a scheme, and then he just expects all his players to be able to plug and play into it. And he doesn't view them as football players. He views them as just one part of the scheme. So this hire of Klay Kubiak, I think, is a step in the right direction for Shanahan. And I think it's going to be a good thing overall, especially because Klay has been the quarterback coach. And so he has familiarity with Brock, and he may be more willing to work with Brock, give Brock more control and power, which I think is a good thing. I think Brock has earned that, and he's going to probably get paid this offseason. And so he should be able to do those things and call audibles and change things up. And I think if Shanahan isn't the one calling the plays, he's less likely to, be upset with Brock for changing things at the line of scrimmage. It's like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it ends up working out. Is Shanahan going to still call plays? Is, this basically just a move for Klay Kubiak to get paid more? Or, what is this actually going to mean? We'll find out next season. But I think it is a good thing that Shanahan is promoting someone to be the offensive coordinator with that specific job title. John Lynch in the press conference today mentioned that Deebo Samuel is someone that they intend to keep for next season. Of course, they have said that about guys before and ended up trading them. They also said that Javon Hargrave would be most likely released, which is a good move. But as far as Deebo goes, yeah, he had a little bit of a down year. Wasn't what anyone wanted from Deebo, including himself. But, it's tough with, having so many guys that are paid to keep everyone around. And to me, Deebo, maybe with the new offensive coordinator, can make some improvements. I think he might be a better fit rather than playing the X or the Z in the Shanahan system. He might be better as an F or, just a slot guy rather than an outside guy. And there has been no creativity in the way they get him the ball. And so bringing him back, I don't think is a bad move. And I know a lot of people are giving Deebo crap, and yeah, he struggled this year, and he obviously had that big drop against the Rams, and I still believe in him. I think he's still got it. And this season was a down season for everyone, not just Deebo, but everyone had a down year. I mean, some guys like Diamador Lenore really stepped it up. He had a great year. Bernardo Green had a great year. Fred Warner had as good of a year as you can have, playing on a broken ankle. He started the season like he was going to play like an all-pro, and yeah, he did make the all-pro team, I saw. But yeah, he slowed down a little bit, I think, with the fractured ankle, which obviously makes sense. But yeah, if Shanahan is coming back. That's been established. If you're bringing him back, then I think you should bring Deebo back. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in Shanahan anymore. So yeah, you might as well just run it back and see what you can do with the same guys. So I've been rambling for a little bit longer than I intended to. One thing I'm not going to get to today is the free agent list that the 49ers have. I was going to go through and kind of break it down by guys who I think the Niners should absolutely make a full effort to bring back, and then guys who I think the Niners should offer, but not necessarily break the bank for. So that might be something I save for next week, just because I have recorded for a lot longer than I was expecting to, and I still have a ton to get to this week. So with that being said, I'm gonna go into the wild card. Before that, we're gonna go into my preseason predictions and sort of review how well I did there. All right, so I'm gonna break down my preseason predictions for the NFL season. If you didn't catch the episode, I actually recorded this one with my dad and brother, and we went through and predicted the playoff seeding, Super Bowl, and then individual awards. And there was, we had some bad takes, but we also had some really good takes too. And there were a few things that I wanted to talk about that we mentioned during that episode. So I'm going to get into it here. So for the AFC standings, I predict the Bills won, then the Ravens, Chargers, Texans, Chiefs, Bengals, and Jets. So for AFC, I got 5 of the playoff teams correct. Bengals almost were a playoff team, and the Jets were horrible. So in fact, the playoff teams that did get in, Steelers, I had at 5-12. And I went through each game and picked every single NFL regular season game, and I had the Steelers 5-12. I didn't have any faith in Russell Wilson. So yeah, as far as and then the other playoff team, the Broncos, I had at 8-9. I said I thought the Broncos were potentially a playoff team, but they were gonna fall just a little short. And look at where they are. Bo Nix. I can't stand the Broncos, but I'm a Bo Nix guy, Oregon fan, and I wouldn't mind seeing him do some damage in the playoffs. For the NFC, I had the Eagles 1, then the Packers, Niners, Saints, Lions 5, Cowboys, and Seahawks. So obviously I struggled with the NFC. I had 1, 2, 3 of the 7 teams correct for playoff seeding. I had Washington at 7-10. I said the Vikings would be like the Broncos. They would have a fringe playoff team because I had no faith in Sam Darnold. He is absolutely balled out this year. I had them going 8-9. The Buccaneers Gosh, this is horrible. I had the Saints 11-6 and the Buccaneers 6-11. That obviously didn't happen. And then I had the Rams at 9-8, just barely on the outside of the playoff picture. And obviously that wasn't the case this year. And then as far as predicting the Super Bowl, which, well, actually this is still possible. For the AFC Championship game, I had the Ravens and Bills. And for the NFC Championship game, I had the Lions and Packers. So those two scenarios are possible. And then for the Super Bowl, I had the Ravens and the Lions, and I believe I picked the Lions to win the Super Bowl. So with that being said, things are looking pretty good there. I wanted to do a little review of my dad and brother's predictions. So for Mark, he had 5 of the 7 teams correct in the AFC. He had the Ravens, Texans, Chiefs, Bills, and Chargers, and then he had the Jets and Dolphins. And then for the NFC, he had the Lions, Eagles, and Rams. So we both struggled to pick the NFC side of things this year. I think we both expected a little too much from the Saints and the Cowboys and the Niners. He had the Niners and Texans in the Super Bowl, which would have been a fun Super Bowl. Texans still can make it, but yeah, rough season. And for my dad in the AFC, he had the Chiefs, Bills, Texans, and Ravens. So 4 of the 7 teams. He also picked the Bengals twice to make the playoffs. So we didn't catch that during the episode. I think next time we do this, I'm going to write things down so that we can remember everything. But he did better in the NFC than my brother and I. So he had the Lions, Eagles, Rams, and Packers. So 4 of the NFC teams. He also had the Falcons, the Niners, and the Bears. That was a surprising pick. I had no faith in the Bears this year, mostly because of Caleb Williams. And yeah, we've seen how that worked out with him. Then he had the Niners and Bengals in the Super Bowl. So unfortunately, my dad did not get either of those teams correct. At least it's not possible for that to happen at this point. So you can go back and watch that episode where we picked Defensive Player of the Year and MVP and stuff. But I will say that my brother really was the only one that got close. Joe Burrow has been in the MVP conversation. He could very easily win it. I think it's very tight between him, Lamar, Josh Allen, and I think Saquon is going to make some noise, but they just don't give. To me, Saquon is a true NFL MVP, but that has become a QB award, so it's probably going to one of those quarterbacks. He also said Joe Burrow would probably win Comeback Player of the Year. I think that is also likely. Joe Burrow had injuries last year, not the best year, and then this year he's in the MVP conversation, so he absolutely could win that award. I had Lamar Jackson as Offensive Player of the Year. I thought he would break his NFL rushing record for QB with the addition of Derrick Henry, but I will say I was correct about Derrick Henry and the impact that he has had on the Ravens. So yeah. And then my dad also unfortunately may have cursed the 49ers. Just kidding. No, Madden cursed the 49ers, but my dad said that Christian McCaffrey has gone way too long without having injury issues for a season, which he has been injury prone during his career. So my dad didn't want this to happen, but he did say he thought Christian McCaffrey may have some injury issues, which is an understatement to say the least. And I like Christian as a player and as a person, but he has also been on my do not draft list for fantasy football for years, just because he is so injury prone, and he's a heck of a football player when he's out there, but he does suffer a lot of injuries. So with that being said, I have something to ask of anyone watching this. NFL fans, the playoffs are here, and I'm looking for your help. Each year for the Super Bowl, I create 2 dishes inspired by the opposing cities that are playing each other in the Super Bowl, and those dishes are usually something unique or specific to each city. So if you have any suggestions for me for unique eats from your city, from your favorite team, any of that, I would really appreciate those. And I'm planning on doing some videos, doing those recipes and preparing them for the Super Bowl. So what I'm looking for are recipes that are shareable or can be made shareable to, a large group of people for a Super Bowl party, and also that is kid friendly. So please send me your suggestions. I really appreciate it. And thank you ahead of time. I am super excited. And with that being said, I'm going to give my NFL playoff predictions for this season. Obviously, I told you my Super Bowl predictions from the preseason, but now that we know who's in the playoffs, I want to do another one. So in the wild card round, and I'm going to go into detail each week about scores and my reasoning behind each, why I'm picking each team. So for the wild card round, I have the Buffalo Bills over Denver, Baltimore over Pittsburgh, Chargers upsetting Houston. I have Philly beating the Packers Packers. Washington is going to surprise the Buccaneers, not really. And then Minnesota will take care of business versus LA. And then from there, the divisional round, I have the Chiefs beating the Chargers, Bills beating the Ravens, which is different from my original preseason prediction. The Lions taking care of the Commanders, Eagles taking care of the Vikings. And so for the championship round, Buffalo versus Kansas City. Man, that's going to be, if that's what happens, it's going to be a heck of a game. And I have Buffalo coming out on top in that game. And then for the NFC championship, we have the Lions and the Eagles. And to me, the Lions have shown all year they're the team to beat. Philly has shown some weaknesses here and there, and that's where they're going to come out. So Super Bowl, we have the Bills and the Lions, and I'm taking the Lions. Let me know what you think, but I think the Lions are the team of destiny. Despite their injuries, despite everything that's gone on, I think they're going to figure it out. To me, they've been hands down the best team in the NFL all year long, and they're going to prove it. And so that leads us to my weekly picks for Wild Card Weekend. We're going to start with the Chargers versus, we're going to go in chronological order. The Chargers at Texans. The Chargers are 2.5 point favorites, even though Houston's at home. And I think they're going to cover. They're going to go in there and beat Houston 24-21. Jim Harbaugh is an awesome coach. He has that team doing some really good things. And even though I personally am not a big Justin Herbert fan, I think he's a little overrated. I think he's going to get the job done. Houston has just been a little disappointing and lackluster this season, so that's why I'm picking the Chargers. And the next game is Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Baltimore Ravens are 8.5 point favorites, and I think they're going to cover by winning 27-18. Lamar Jackson, another MVP caliber season. I think a lot of that has to do with Derrick Henry, and they just looked absolutely dominant this last week. They looked like they weren't even trying, and they still handedly beat the Browns. And Derrick Henry struggled in the first half. I don't think he was really, I think they were slow playing it with him a little bit. They obviously want to have him for this playoff run, but yeah, I think they're a much better team than Pittsburgh. I would like to see Pittsburgh bring out Justin Fields and get creative with him. I think they have done that a little bit this season, but not recently. And that might be the only way they have a chance against this tough Baltimore team. And so the last of the AFC games, we have Denver Broncos at Pittsburgh, or at Buffalo. Buffalo are 7.5 point favorites, and I also have them covering. So a little bit of a theme here. Buffalo's going to win 24-16. I think, to me, Josh Allen is hands down the MVP. Well, maybe not hands down, but it's pretty close. But to me, he deserves it. He has been unbelievable, as he is every year. And even though Denver has a tough defense, this Buffalo team is going to figure it out with Josh Allen. 24-16, like I said. Bo Nix, I think a little bit of his inexperience will come out in this game. And even though it's going to look close on the scoreboard, I don't think it's going to be that close. So, and going to the NFC, and I think it's interesting that they have the AFC teams playing chronologically and then the NFC teams. I don't know. I would personally like to see it mixed up a little bit more. I don't know why they specifically do it that way. Maybe it's just, I don't know. I've never noticed that before, but anyway, Packers at Eagles. Eagles are 4 point favorites, and I also have them covering. They're going to win 33-27. I believe Jalen Hurts is coming back, but to me, Jalen Hurts he's good. I think he is the best quarterback on their roster, but not a game changer. The game changer is Saquon. To me, he's the true MVP of the league, because this Eagles team, I think, would fall apart without Saquon, honestly, and they're going to run the heck out of him during this playoff run. So Philly's going to win 33-27 in a little bit of maybe not quite a shootout, but it's going to be relatively high scoring. And then the Sunday night football game, Washington at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay are 3 point favorites, and this is a game where I'm picking the underdog, the Commanders. Washington all season has been really good offensively, and Jaden Daniels is just absolutely He has lit it up. That doesn't sound, I don't know. He has been on fire, and they have done a great job with that team. I think Tampa Bay's just been a little bit too inconsistent, and that's going to come out here. Baker Mayfield is a heck of a quarterback. I've grown to respect him so much more the last 2 seasons, and he's gonna make it tough. I can see this one coming down to the last second, honestly. Washington's gonna pull it out 34-31. And then ending wild card weekend on Monday night, we have the Vikings at the Rams, and I think playoff seeding is stupid. It's so crazy that the Vikings, if they won that last game, were the number 1 seed, and instead they have to go play pretty much every game on the road from now on. I'm not a huge fan of the way the playoffs are, how they do the playoffs, but I fully expect Minnesota to go in there. And the Rams offensively have been just not good the last, what seems like 5 or 6 weeks. They've been struggling. They've been not able to do very much at all as far as scoring points. And we saw that against the Niners of all teams. So yeah, I fully expect Minnesota. They're the much better team in my opinion. They're going to cover. They're going to win 29-23. Might be a little bit of a weird game, but I just, Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, they're going to light it up. So there you have it for my wild card predictions. Let me know what you think. Who's your team? What are your predictions? Let me know down below. I like hearing from every one of you. I got a lot of crap for my Denver Broncos take against the Chiefs. I thought the Chiefs were going to go in and win with Carson Wentz and all their backups. To be fair, I didn't know the extent that Kansas City was going to rest their starters. I thought it was going to be like Mahomes, Kelsey, Pacheco, some of the, stars of the team. But it seemed like they really rested pretty much everyone in that game, and Denver won, 38-0 or something like that. So I got a lot of crap for that one, and deservedly so. Hopefully I'm correct this week. As a 49ers fan, season's over, and so I just want to see some good football, and the Chiefs lose. That's all I care about. Really, any of these other teams I don't mind seeing. I will say, as just a football fan, the teams that I wouldn't mind seeing win the Super Bowl this year, and this is in order. The Texans, number one, and the reason for the Texans, they've kind of taken over so I have one favorite team, the Niners, but there are teams that I kind of, I root for their success, and the Texans are one of those teams. Part of that is because, Andre Johnson was one of my favorite players of all time. Absolutely loved Andre Johnson. He was a stud, and my brother-in-law and his family are Texans fans, and you just don't see a lot of Texans fans. They're one of the newer franchises in the NFL, and of course they haven't won a Super Bowl, so I think that would be awesome. I really like DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud. They've unfortunately been hit with the injury bug as well to some of their big time guys like Stephon Diggs, who is the other? Not Nico Collins. Oh, why is his name escaping me? I'm gonna look so dumb. It's not coming to me, but yeah, that's the reason why I wouldn't mind seeing the Texans win. After them, the Bills. I think it would be really cool to see Josh Allen win. So many times he's just come up just short to Patrick Mahomes, and I think those Buffalo Bills teams could have been Super Bowl champions if they had found a way to beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So I really think this could be their year as well. They have the team to do it. They have the quarterback to do it, and so that'd be really cool. And of course, the Bills are known for losing 4 Super Bowls in a row. Buffalo has some of the coolest fans. Against the Niners, they found out, I think, about Charvarius Ward's incident, and they ended up donating to Charvarius Ward's nonprofit, and so I have a lot of respect for that and that fan base, and it'd be cool to see them get one as well. And then the last team are the Lions. Detroit, obviously, as they went from not having a playoff win for many years to now they were in the NFC Championship last year. This year they look like the best team in football, and they've really showcased the proper way to build the team. In my opinion, they are the gold standard for that at this moment. Them and the Chiefs, because they, despite all their injuries this season on defense, they've still been really solid, and they haven't used that as an excuse. They have built a team with depth and star power. They're really well balanced. They're creative on offense. They get their offensive line the ball. They literally have plays designed where they throw the ball to the receiver and then they hand it off to an offensive line. It's awesome. Part of the reason, of course, is Ben Johnson, his creativity. He's going to be a hot commodity this year. I really wish the Niners could have made a move for him, but yeah, it'd be cool. And that fan base, actually after the Niners and Lions game, I went to the gym and there was a Bills fan or a Lions fan there, and he was, talking a little smack, but he's from Detroit, and he just said, man, he would love to see his team win one. And I agree. I think it would be really cool. We've seen a lot of those other teams win. Of course, the Chiefs, the Steelers have won the last, I guess it's been a while for the Steelers, but TJ Watt, it'd be cool to see him win one. I don't want to watch Russell Wilson win another Super Bowl though. So, there's that. There's the Ravens, I think would be a fun one too. Lamar's a guy. He's so fun to watch. But anyway, that's enough for now. Thank you for everyone who took the time to listen today. I appreciate every single one of you. If you haven't yet and you like the video, please go like it, subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing predictions each week until the Super Bowl. And then I'll, of course, do some little short videos on the recipes that are sent my way or that I find. My plan for that is to pick I'll gather all the different ideas, and then I'll finalize which one I'm going to do for each team around divisional championship weekend. And then then from there, I'll make them for the Super Bowl. And it's one of my favorite things to do every year. Last year, I was a little too upset with the Niners loss, so I didn't release my 49ers one, but I did San Francisco style burritos. And then I can't remember what I did for the dessert, but yeah, it's really cool just to find these recipes and try them. They're actually, some of them that I've done have been my favorites. Like for the Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl, I did Stroud's Cinnamon Rolls, which is a place in, I think, Kansas City or near there. They're like they're not traditional cinnamon rolls, they're like rolled up and they have cinnamon inside. It's a different kind of cinnamon roll. And those are one of my favorites. Those were a hit. Low key, I kind of want the Bills to be in the Super Bowl so I can have an excuse to make buffalo wings, specifically to, buffalo, like actual authentic buffalo wings. I think that'd be cool. But anyway, I'm going off on tangents, and that's enough for now. So yeah, thank you once again. This has been Sports Time with Chris.